it's good to see so many of us who've gathered today. And it's kind of weird and good for me to hear myself referred to as senior pastor. For those who are Baptists, it's not unusual for you to be in church 3 hours. But we're going to pray about that. There are so many people that we need to acknowledge, but time does not allow us to do that. But we must at least acknowledge the presence of the Honorable Bill Campbell, the Honorable Shirley Franklin, and of course, the country's best mayor, serving in the country's best city, the Honorable Andre Dickens. Let me take this opportunity to do this while I can, because everybody doesn't get this opportunity. Let me acknowledge the presence of my friend, the one, the only Dr. Jamal Bryant. Come on, fearless. Many of you don't know it, but Dr. Bryant, Raphael Warnock, and I, we were all at Morehouse at the same time. They went to class. We've reached a pivotal point in this country's history. Things have gotten to the point where it demands that we come together. And much like the civil rights movement, there was not just one organization that was moving. We may not all see things the same way. We may not agree on everything, but we ought to be able to at least come together on these matters. I've said this for some years to our churches. We cannot afford to view ourselves as competitors. We must return to the days when we are co-laborers. Let me acknowledge the presence of all the ministers of the gospel. Will you please stand? Amen. Our Dean of Preachers, Dr. Durley, our Judge of Preachers, Judge Penny, Dr. Flippin, and so many others. I know you'll understand when I say this. This is not a new day that we're facing. This is history being repeated. And let me say, let me come from a biblical perspective so you know that this is not a new thing. There was a day when captives were taken to a foreign land. They were taken from their land and brought to a foreign land. And they were tested, but they refused to eat the king's meat. They refused to drink the king's beverage. And after they were tested, they were proven to be better than their counterparts. But the day came where the king built a golden image of himself and wanted everybody to bow down to him. And unfortunately, the governors bowed down, the judges bowed down, the treasurers bowed down, all the politicians bowed down, but there were 3 who refused to bow down. And I think I'm talking to representatives of the 3 today. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego refused to bow down. And I want to ask this question today. Do we still have people who are willing to stand up for our rights? Do we still have people willing to stand up to fight for the right to vote? Do we still have people willing to stand up for what our ancestors fought for, bled for, died for, counted marbles for? Are we still that people who are willing to stand up and not bow down? Dr. Bryan, I didn't mean to say this, but I'm sorry. Y'all don't stand up on a Baptist preacher, because once you do that, the floodgates open. Listen, we got to pray for this country. That person who has the title has already announced, to my dismay, he announced, as he held the Bible upside down, he announced that he probably wasn't going to heaven. If he's already planning on not going to heaven, then I'm not following him where he's going. But what he's trying to do is create hell on earth. And we can't allow that. So let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this time. We thank you for this gathering. We pray that you bless our efforts. Continue to be with us. We thank you for how you blessed our forefathers, and we thank you for how you blessed us. Now, Lord, we pray your protection over all of our legislators, over all of our council members, over all of our mayors, God, over all of our leaders. Pray your protection over all of our preachers. God, continue to lead, God, guide, and protect. Bless this service as we learn how to fight. In the blessed name of Jesus we pray. Amen.
I'm going to bring up a young man who needs no introduction, our mayor, Andre Dickens.
Come on, y'all. Now, come on. Y'all don't know how much this mayor has been through. Our city has not been occupied or taken over. That's because of the leadership of this mayor.
Thank you. Thank you. I think they were confused when he said coming up as this young man. I was young once upon a time. I'm so honored to stand here at Antioch. This is my home church. I used to sit right up there in the balcony where all the students, we like to hide out. And this is when I was at Georgia Tech. We sit right there, and I'd hear the preaching of Reverend Alexander. I'd hear that wonderful choir. That's when I got converted. My spirit changed. When I heard this song 100 times before, while on others thou art calling, do not pass me by. Do not pass me by. I'm calling you Savior, Savior. Hear my humble cry. While on others thou art calling, do not pass me by. I might have heard the song 100 times at Greater New Light Baptist Church, where I was baptized as a young man. And then when I got to college and heard that 100 times. But one day I heard that, and it converted my whole spirit into being a believer, and I still wear that to this day. I came down the aisle, I gave God my heart, I gave the preacher my hand, and I've committed myself to that. And so in this moment, I'm reflecting on, sometimes you hear things so often you get used to it, you think it's gonna be there forever, like our voting rights, what we're talking about. And so that's what we're called to do today, is take inventory and look at, can we commit ourselves to this moment? Even though you might have heard somebody else say they trying to take our rights, it's your time. It's your time. Do not let this pass me by this time. So Reverend Kenneth Alexander and Antioch, thank you. Thank you for hosting us today. Thank you for what you do on this corner, in this community, in this city, in this state. For years, over 100+ years, this church has really stood for purpose and for people, and I'm grateful to be a part of it. To my pastor, Reverend Sean Smith of New Horizon Baptist Church, we've been here. We're a mission church from Antioch, and now we are on our own, and we are grateful to still stand in partnership with them. And we've been serving for 25 years. Reverend Sean Smith, we're about to celebrate our 25th anniversary. All are invited. Come to our ceremony. Reverend said I'm the guest speaker, so y'all get to hear me twice today and then. And I'm always honored to share the stage and share this space with my mayor predecessors, Ambassador, Mayor, Congressman Andrew Young. Yeah. Bill Campbell. Shirley Franklin. And my understanding is Kasim Reed may be on his way. I know his mother was having some challenges this week, and we pray for her. And I know Keisha Lance, there he is right there, Kasim Reed. He gonna come in here. Kasim, we clapping for you, man. Come on in. And then Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms, on her way to be governor, Mayor Bottoms. Governor Bottoms. And Valerie Jackson, the widow of our late, great Maynard Jackson, is here. Welcome, Kasim. Thank you for being here. I just ran the roll of all these outstanding mayors. And then we have a great council member here, Council Member Bond, and then I saw Council Member Martin of the world's greatest city council. Wayne Martin being here. Oh, and Antonio Lewis. Huh? Byron Amos. Where's Byron Amos? Byron Amos is right there. Who else is a city council member? Y'all, Byron Amos is here. And then our state leaders are here. I see so many of our state representatives, state senators, and state leaders. And then Judge Penny, I see you here. We know we in this fight for you. All of the above. These judges here. I see Miracle, who just got elected. So we're proud of you. And our state leader, there she is, Miracle right there. A Superior Court judge. Congratulations to her. And I want to and everybody that's doing something good, thank y'all. God bless y'all. Our labor leaders that's here. I see Sandra, and the clergy that we've identified. But I want to thank, and of course, the people I share this pulpit with, like you, Jabari. Thank you for bringing us, Jabari was right here. Jabari, thank you for bringing us all together. Jabari Samama, and to Dr. Bryant, that's here, my frat brother, but also this great minister. I thank you, brother, for being here. I want to thank Ambassador Young, who is most responsible for getting us all here today. You have spent a lifetime bringing people together in the name of justice, dignity, and democracy. The fact that you chose to lend your voice and moral authority to today's event, to the actual soul of Atlanta movement, is a gift to all of us and a gift to this entire city. And I speak for this city when I say we are eternally grateful that Atlanta is the place that you chose to make your home and live your mission. Thank you, Ambassador Young, as we celebrate your 94th birthday. Let's give him some love, y'all. Thank you for Ambassador Andrew Young. And he is still the one sounding the alarm and calling us to action. And when he says that the people must respond, we know he means all of us, and we don't take it lightly. Because God knows there is plenty to respond to right now. We're watching the Voting Rights Act be dismantled piece by piece, state by state. We see states eager to redraw maps that had finally gave our communities a real seat at the table. And we are witnessing a sustained attack on the simple idea that our institutions should work for all of us, not just some of us. And that's why today's Unity Day Summit is so timely. There are people here who who remember being encouraged to spend our money at Rich's department store, but not being allowed to eat there. There are people here who were around when the city of Atlanta hung closed for repair signs to keep black folks out of our recreation centers. This was a long time ago, but people remember that. In this state, we have Alfred Tubb Homes to thank for suing the city of Atlanta all the way up to the Supreme Court to make public property like golf courses and recreation centers available to everyone because they once were segregated. Alfred Tubb Homes had to sue and make it all the way to the Supreme Court in 1955. Then come back 1961, that same family, Hamilton Homes, sued the state of Georgia so they could go and desegregate UGA. That happened in this state. So this fight, we gotta remember, that's 65 and 70 years ago. That ain't 100 or 200 years ago. And what is that ties us all together is we are witnessing the erosion of those civil rights right now and the civil rights enforcement. So when we hear the people must respond, we understand that the response must be broad. It has to be including of faith community leaders, of elected officials, of business leaders, of educators, of students, labor, and everyday citizens who all understand that freedom must be guarded. We can't fix it and forget about it. We must respond with unity and with strategy and with action. So at City Hall, our Office of One Atlanta, which is led by Candace Stansfield right here in the front row, continues to be fully committed to ensuring that all of Atlanta has access to the services and departments this city can provide. And as we prepare to welcome the world for the FIFA World Cup, it's that time, we're making sure Atlanta values are put out front and center. And we have our Atlanta 2026 Human Rights Action Plan, which includes all of these civil rights. And we remember when we stood on a stage at another church just about a year ago or 6 months ago where we all had to fight when they were trying to dismantle our disadvantaged business program that put our Black and Hispanic businesses and women-owned businesses into the business of doing work for the government. When the federal government tried to strip us of that, all of us got back together and we fought that, and guess what, y'all? We still have our DBE program in the city of Atlanta, providing 37% of every contract to minority and women in this city. We had to fight the federal government. You stood on stage with me and in the audience then, and we did that together, and this is just like that moment, we're gonna have to fight the David and Goliath fight. And so we are Atlanta, and we know how to meet the moment. We have done it before, time and time again, but we have to do it together, and that's how we will ultimately do it again for this moment. God bless you all, and let's keep up the good fight.
I'm going to ask Ms. Highfield and Mayor Shirley Franklin to come on up.
I was going to say we were not going to start without having Mayor Franklin up here because she got the most applause. And as we all know, Black women are the backbone of our society, and they make it happen. So you need to make certain that we are lifting them up as they have lifted us up on and on and on. For those of you who wonder, Sherilyn Ifill, the longtime head of the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, a legend in her incredible career. Shirley Franklin, a legend also. You know, they have just named parks and streets after Shirley Franklin, and only in Atlanta could you have a place where the entire civil and human rights is mapped out across our landscape. You can go to Andy Young International Drive and John Lewis Parkway and MLK and Ralph Abernathy and Campbellton Road, and I asked them not to do it, but they said, you deserve it, and I said, well, you're right. And so that's how it happened. Look, first of all, we have such an outstanding mayor. My goodness, this mayor has done incredible work, and we are so very proud to have him lead our city at this important time. And as you know, there's so many challenges that we're facing. But before I talk about why we're here, what the occasion is, I tell you where I know our backbone is, and that is in the black church. And Antioch Baptist Church has been here forever, and we appreciate Kenny Alexander and all the pastors who are here, who every Sunday they are making certain, Penny Reynolds, all these pastors are making certain that every Sunday they are getting people registered, they get into the polls, and we cannot do it without you. In fact, you're the only thing that's left for us to make certain that we get people to the polls. So we appreciate very much. Why are we here today? Well, because in the words of the freedom fighter Angela Davis, we are no longer accepting the things that we cannot change. We're changing the things we cannot accept. And that's why we're here today. And we cannot, we will not, we must not accept the pernicious and transparent attacks on our sacred right to vote. They say that past is prologue. So let us examine the devious history of our efforts to stop us from voting. In 1865 to 1877, 16 blacks were elected to the U.S. Congress. I want you to understand that right after Reconstruction, 1865 to 1877, there were 16 blacks elected to the Congress. By the end of the century, they were all gone. The product of gerrymandering, political chicanery, poll taxes, literacy taxes, residency requirements, the violence by the Ku Klux Klan. Does it sound familiar? Well, today, the KKK may not be what's our problem, but the MAGA is the problem. It's just old wine in a new bottle. It took 100 years from 1865 to get the Voting Rights Act approved in 1965. And then it took another 50 years for us to get 62 members of Congress that are African Americans today, 62. And it's only taken now a year and a half to start the process of dismantling the Voting Rights Act. What I'm most proud of, however, is that that's just simply too much democracy for Trump and his Supreme Court lackeys. And so they have resorted to the same thing, gerrymandering and requirements, residency requirements, and things that will make certain that we don't have the same opportunities to vote, or that our vote does not count as much as it should. So I want you to think about this for a minute. Mississippi has 40% of its population is African American. 40%, they have one member of Congress that's African American. South Carolina has 37%. They have one representative. Alabama has 40%. They have 3 representatives. Oh, but here in Georgia, we have more than any other place in the country. We have 6 African Americans that represent us in the Congress. And we have a terrific senator who is also a pastor. We have Senator John Ossoff, a terrific senator who's up for re-election and who has the same values that we do. Well, why are we so successful here in Georgia? Well, it's because of Atlanta. If you take Atlanta out of Georgia, it's Mississippi. I said it. You take Atlanta out of Georgia, and it's Mississippi. And so when you see 7 consecutive African-American mayors, it's because of Atlanta. And for all of you who wonder about the efficacy of what we're able to do, fly in and out of the busiest airport in the world, not in the South, not in the country, in the world. Every single brick of that airport was built by African-American mayors. 7 consecutive African-American mayors. Whom here, Christine Reed, Shirley Franklin, Andre Dickens, Mayor Andy Young, Keisha Lance Bottoms, and of course Maynard Jackson, who we always remember his incredible legacy. And it's because we have had this incredible constellation of leaders, W.B. Du Bois, who taught at Atlanta University, Dr. King and Coretta King and Williams Holmes Borders and Benjamin Mays and Ralph and Juanita Abernathy and John Lewis and Julian Bond and Joseph Lowry, and the name goes on. We have had a constellation of leaders unlike any other place, and that's why Atlanta has put these 5 African Americans in the Congress and the 1 in the Senate. Now, all that talk of greatness is at risk, because if we allow them to do what they are getting ready to do next week, it will all be for naught. There are 62 African American members of Congress. Most of them, 30 of them, could be wiped out because they're all in the South. They're all trying to redo that. Imagine that they're trying to take away the potency of our right to vote. So, to conclude, we must be committed to this effort. And people ask me all the time, what do you mean by committed? And I say, well, did you ever have bacon and eggs for breakfast? I say, well, the chicken was involved, but the pig was committed. And we must be like the pig. We must be committed to this effort. That's great material, Reverend Alexander. They don't even hear this. That's good stuff. The pig was committed. Goodness gracious. So look, Scripture, Joshua 24:13 tells us we live in cities we did not build. Yeah. It means we have an obligation to give our children a better world than what we inherited ourselves. And so that's why we're here today. And I leave you with the last word of a writer. He said, it's never too late to be what you might have been. It's never too late to be what you might have been. What does that mean? Well, it means that for those of you who read about Dr. King and Andy and John Lewis, and you wish that you could have been a part of that movement, but you were too young, or you just didn't know about it, well, now is the time. You can start a whole new movement right now. You can be committed to making certain that we overcome and make certain that we do that right now, being committed. Well, I now have the great honor of introducing a person that is really so remarkable, and I have to tell you this story. So some of you may know that Ambassador Young went to meet with the Pope on Sunday. And so I called him up and I said, my goodness, that's so extraordinary. Andy, you went to meet with the Pope. And I said, how was it? He said, oh, it's okay. And I said, well, how? So it was your first time? He said, no, this is my 4th Pope. Said, my 4th Pope. You know, they often say that familiarity obscures greatness, because we may not understand how remarkable this man is who has done so much for our community and for the world. It is just extraordinary. And so he is the prophet of peace. And when the history of the world is written, it will call Mandela and Gandhi and Lewis and King and Andrew Young. I introduce to you our great friend, the remarkable Andrew Jackson Young.
I don't know what got into Bill. I'm sitting there thinking about what I'm saying or what I'm supposed to say, and I look up and I asked Andrea, who is he talking about? And she said, you. But you know, I see it different. And I see coming back from Norway with Dr. King. And we did not have an appointment with the President of the United States. We weren't really in, but we stopped off in New York and Governor Rockefeller met us. Also at the back door was Malcolm X, who said, I don't want to go on the stage, but I want you to know how proud I am of you and that I'm with you all the way. But I think it's best for us to keep separate identities. And then we get in there, and Governor Rockefeller says, I know you all are going to see the president, and I just want to let you know you can use my plane and let me know what time you want to go. Now, the truth of it is, we didn't even have an appointment with the president. But when Governor Rockefeller, who was a Republican, said, I know you're going to see the president, they got busy down in Washington and squeezed us in. But they squeezed us in the afternoon that all of the generals were there with President Johnson. And they were beating up on him because they wanted him, they really wanted him to use atomic weapons in Vietnam. And he was holding back and defending himself and saying, no, we don't want to escalate this war. We were supposed to be there, we thought, at 3 o'clock. We didn't get in to see President Johnson until almost 6 o'clock. But we were with the vice president and the attorney general during that time. When we finally got in to see President Johnson, everything that Dr. King said, he said, I agree with you 100%, Dr. King. I just don't have the power. And he must have said that 20 times. I just don't have the power. When we left, I said, you know, Martin, President Johnson is right. We don't have any money because the Nobel Prize money, he divided up amongst all 6 of the civil rights organizations. So we ended up with $10,000 instead of $60,000. But Governor Rockefeller decided he would match the Nobel Prize. So we ended up with $20,000. But every one of the civil rights organizations got a Nobel Prize. And when we started out of the White House, they didn't have all this fencing there then. And I said, you know, President is right. This is not the time. You need to take a sabbatical. Think this through. Decide what we're going to do next year. And he said, no, we're going to get the president some power. And excuse me, but I didn't usually talk to him like this, but I said, you Morehouse niggas are a trip. I said, here we are, and you ain't got a pot to piss in or a window to throw it out of, and you gonna get the president some power. And normally he'd have laughed and said something back, but he didn't say anything. And I said, oh, sir, I thought I'd pull the cord and got him mad, but I didn't. He was still thinking about a power. I was thinking about political power. He was thinking about spiritual power. And when we got back to Atlanta the next day, we got a phone call from Selma. And a lady that both of us knew by the name of Amelia Boynton called and said, we need your help in Selma. And again, not only did we not have any money, we didn't have any plans until this lady who was in her 70s then, I think she made it to 100, but she came over with 3 preachers, and we decided that we would go to Selma the day after New Year for the NAACP Freedom Dinner, which usually is on the first of the year. We didn't know. We didn't have a plan. But we didn't even know we had a power. But when Amelia Boynton came over with 3 preachers, we had God's power. And God's power in Atlanta, or New York, or Washington, you might say something, but Selma, you know, my wife was from Marion, and Martin's wife was from Marion, so we knew Selma. Selma wasn't but 15,000 people. How are you going to have any power in a little town of 15,000? But by March the 7th, we had marched up, prayed up, jailed up a volume of spiritual power that in 90 days from the time we were in, well, it took us 6 months really till after St. Augustine to get the Voting Rights Act. And, but I don't know where it came from, but never has this nation seen a display of power like it did with John Lewis and Hosea Williams going across the Edmund Pettus Bridge. And but the Lord has a way. Not only did we go across the Edmund Pettus Bridge, but it was March the 7th. It was snowing in New York. It was snowing in Chicago. It was snowing in Philadelphia. And people were shut in, and they were looking at a movie called Judgment at Nuremberg, which was a story of how Hitler destroyed the Jews. And the television news cut from Nuremberg to Selma. And people of goodwill all across this nation rose up. And we got a voting rights bill and a civil rights bill. And we got the power that gave us an opportunity to give leadership to Atlanta. Now, the vision you see of Atlanta, if you remember, when you were growing up, none of this was here. And this came along with Maynard Jackson, came along with, what's my brother's name up there? No, I'm not, I was, well, anyway, it came along with 9 black mayors. And everybody had something to do with the way this city grew. And not only is that airport the best, but the last time I went out there to the airport to see who is it making this airport run, there were 12 people in the board's office room. And I was looking to see how many white folks there were. Only 1 white man. But there were only 2 black men. There were 9 black women running the Atlanta airport. The busiest airport in the world. So what we have seen here is a complete transformation of society. And that's why we don't have a pot to piss in now. But we got power that we know how to utilize. We got God's power.
So,
And this is about awakening God's power in us to change not only Atlanta, but to change Georgia and to change these United States of America.
so, good morning. I'm Andrea Young. I'm his daughter and also the executive director of the ACLU of Georgia. Thank you. So we have been litigating over the districts in Georgia using the Voting Rights Act. We now know that the Supreme Court has taken one more step at gutting the Voting Rights Act. We are coming up on a special session of the Georgia General Assembly, which was called to take another, to roll back the districts that we now have. We have, I think we heard 5 Black members of Congress. Understand that at the time of the Voting Rights Act, there were 4 Black members of Congress for 19 million Black people in America. And so we have seen a rush to undo the work of the Voting Rights Act. But we have a moment, we have 2 moments coming. We have our November election, but we also have our special session. How do we mobilize, how do we use God's power to block the Georgia legislature from eliminating the districts that have created the power? I try to remind people, DEI is Atlanta's business plan, right? That's why we have the prosperity. But how do we mobilize to block a rollback from the Georgia legislature?
Well, let me say that when I got elected to Congress, it was storming. It poured down rain from all day Monday, all day voting rights that day. Tuesday, couldn't vote but one day. And I thought, Lord, why did you do this to me? My people don't come out in the rain because they don't want to get their hair messed up. And when I went out and looked, every poll was full. We had a 75% turnout of Black voters in the pouring down rain. Now, I didn't do that. I might have helped, but that was a spiritual movement. Every church suddenly had its church bus running and picked up people in the rain. The taxi cabs decided you call them and they would take people to the polls free. Everybody did something spiritual, and it created a political revolution that started this. Maynard got elected the next year as mayor because we left the same organization in place, because he gave them to me, I gave them back to him. You know, and we've been on that roll ever since. But we also got close to 30% of the white vote out for me. And everybody here has not been elected by just Black people. We have Hispanics, we have Koreans, we have Chinese, we have Jews. The Jewish community has always been with us in Atlanta. In fact, it was Sam Massell that gave me the job that maybe set me up to run for Congress. And it's why we are in the church, because our movement is church power. And we are celebrating the 250th anniversary of the Constitution because only the Lord could have made possible that document and have it whole through wars and crimes and all kinds of corruption recently, and still be the hope of earth for God's people.
Now, when you ran for Congress, there was also between the first time and second time you ran, there was also an attempt at mid-district redistricting. Do you remember how the Voting Rights Act was used to help save your district? So they try to propose that this is not race-based. It's just partisan gerrymandering.
Why don't you tell us?
Yeah,
I don't remember. Remember, I'm 94.
So we have seen this movie before. When he ran and got the Democratic nomination in 1970, in the next session, they drew him out of the 5th Congressional District. They took part of the 5th Congressional District and put it in the district with Noonan, Georgia. But at that time, we had a Voting Rights Act with pre-clearance. Because the Supreme Court has been chipping away at the Voting Rights Act since 2013, when they got rid of pre-clearance. And at that time, the ACLU was able to use the Voting Rights Act to reverse that decision.
You know, and the lawyer that helped me defend that case in ACLU was the same lawyer in Birmingham that had represented the city. And now he was from opposition to being a partner. And so this is a spiritual movement, and we should not forget the total diversity of God's people that are going to help make this change, but it's still got to fall back on us. We have to show the Spirit. And all the women I was hugging and kissing as they got off the buses at 5 o'clock in the morning, they went to white folks' kitchens, and while they were fixing breakfast, they said, "You maybe try to take a look at this boy. He was out there at 5 o'clock this morning and gave me a kiss." And they made white folks think I was all right.
Do you have any questions? One more question. So this is a time, and also to remember, again, this is a movie we see over and over. We make progress, we face backlash. We talked about downstairs that, in the 1870s, there were 33 African American members of the Georgia legislature. They were pushed out because of race. We have a 15th Amendment that says you cannot deny someone the right to vote on account of race, color, or previous condition of servitude. So this idea that you need to prove intentional discrimination, it's always been unconstitutional, well, since the 15th Amendment, been unconstitutional to deny someone the right to vote on account of race. Nevertheless, from 1874 to 1963, Georgia had no elected black representatives in the Georgia General Assembly. And so understanding that history and how we continue to push back against that history, and how you formulated the strategies around the Voting Rights Act at a time when there was very little, almost no black representation in the South. So how do we keep the faith? How do we be kind of like the New York Knicks? It's a little sensitive to say Knicks, but they did come back from 29 down. And Jalen Brunson said he never stopped believing. We always believed we could win. So how do we keep that belief that we can win even under these challenging times?
Well, we also have a song saying, "I don't feel no ways tired." We've come too far from where we started from. And nobody told us that the way would be easy. But I don't believe he brought us this far to leave us.
I don't think there's
That's why
anything
we're
else to
here.
say after that. Thank you.
Ooh, y'all look good. How's everybody doing today? Praise God. Ambassador Andrew Young, one of the baddest men on the planet, one of the greatest men our country has ever produced. And when we look at this room and think about the city of Atlanta, we can never forget the fountainhead. It's Dr. Martin Luther King, Ambassador Young, Coretta Scott King, all of those leaders who laid it on the line. The fountainhead. On yesterday, at a gas station about 3 miles from where we are right now, there was a black boy and a black girl, actually they're a young man and young women, they're students at Howard University. They went to the gas station, Mayor, to get gas in their car, Ambassador. They pull up to the gas station, Andrea and Chairman Pitts, and they put the gas pump in the car. They start pumping gas. No gas goes into the car. But they had paid $20, so they went back into the gas station to tell the attendant no gas had gone into the car. So the attendant at the Chevron goes out, he looks at the pump, he said, well, you know, maybe something is wrong with the thermometer in your car. And so these two young students from Howard said, there's nothing wrong with my car was running fine, Reverend Alexander. I paid $20 and I would like to either get gas or my $20 back. So these young people called me, they just said, we just want you to know what's going on. I said, well, do you want me to do anything? No, we don't want you to do anything. We're gonna handle it. They then said, we're either gonna call the police or you're gonna refund our money. So the attendant, forgetting that he was in the city of Atlanta, said, call the police. The police came, and guess what? The police made that man give those kids that $20 back. Atlanta's a special place, you all. What kind of children are we raising? We're at that gas station. Miss Jackson, they didn't blink. They never thought about just walking away. They never thought about cowering or tucking and running or being scared or afraid, because this is the city of Atlanta. And so I'm here for all of the seniors who are out there who I'm joining soon. I'm here to tell y'all that we are joining what you all have built. That help is on the way, that we are here, and that this generation is coming behind you is super bad. And that there is no place like the city of Atlanta. Because we got a Mayor Dickens as mayor. So when the police drive by, we show them what free black men and free black women look like. Ladies and gentlemen, we're getting ready to show America what a free black man looks like. What a free black woman looks like when she runs for governor. It's time to show America what a free black man looks like. We need to shut this down. These people are not playing with us, and we need to stop playing with them. I want all the smoke. You got the President of the United States trying to pass what they call the SAVE Act. It's nothing more than it's okay to be a racist act. Well, guess what? We free down here in Georgia. Police drive by in Atlanta, we go, how we doing, officer? You okay? How's the mayor doing? Is he okay? I was in Africa. I went to Accra, went to Ghana, where they shipped us over here. Mayor Franklin called me. Jabari called me, Miss Jackson. He said we need to meet. When Shirley Franklin calls and Jabari calls and say we need to meet, I don't care what's going on. You get your butt up and you go meet. Don't get it twisted in Atlanta. We meet. They say they want to have an occasion to launch the battle to let everybody know that in Georgia, we are free black men and free black women, and we're going to show all the black people in America what free black men and what free black women do look like. That's what we do here. You go to a basketball game, we show them what free black people look like. And they said there's a man, I think you know him, he's a bad man. I said he must be a Kappa. And so, Mayor Franklin said, I like this guy. I've been watching him. Jabari said, I like him too, I've been watching him. We want him to come and address the audience for this meeting that Ambassador Young has convened. I told Jabari I think I'm gonna be with him in Africa. Walk into the hotel lobby. There this brother is standing there. I walk up to him, we embrace, and I'm telling you, this air in Accra, Ghana is special air. Feels like Atlanta, man. I walked up to him. I said, Mayor Franklin, Ambassador Young, they need you. He didn't check his schedule. He didn't pull out his iPhone. He held hands. He said, I'm there. You see, the thing about the next speaker that I came to bring up is other people talk about the smoke. Other people talk about the fight. But the guy that I'm about to bring up is a $12.4 billion man, because that's what he cost Target in market cap when he called on the boycott. Target made $104 billion. He dropped them down $12.5 billion. And we still ain't going back. Jamal Bryant called me when it was getting hard. Said they're messing with my house. They're messing with my family. I said, let me tell you something, you're built for it. I said, all you gotta remember is that in this community, in Atlanta, in Georgia, with the people of New Birth behind you, you're gonna show them what a free black man looks like. Ladies and gentlemen, my frat brother, 3 Kappas on the stage, Andre Dickens, Kasim Reeve, Jamal Bryant, and Kenny Alexander. 4 Kappas on the stage, showing you what a free black man looks like. Come and give this fire, Jamal Bryant. Come and give this fire, my frat brother.
Thank you. Love you, sir. Nobody said the road was going to be easy, but I don't believe he's brought us this far to leave us now. I want to extend high commendation to all of our former mayors who are present. We're appreciative for their life and for their legacy. But I want to take a point of personal privilege just to extend my overwhelming gratitude and indebtedness to Ambassador Young. We are to honor and celebrate him because if America hasn't taught us anything, it is America only knows how to celebrate dead prophets, but they don't know how to honor living ones. We are thankful for Ambassador Young and for his life. Can we salute him in an overwhelming way for who he is and for what he represents? Can't we all just get along? I want to ask all of the young people who are 25 and under, would you please stand, all of our young people who are 25 and under. Come on, let's cheer for the future of this city, the future of our people, the future of this nation. There is no revolution without young people on the front line. So we are overwhelmingly grateful. Appreciate our host pastor, Dr. Alexander, for opening up his doors. It is strategic and significant that we would come back to the church to relaunch the new civil rights movement. The reality is it was out of the womb of the black church that the movement was able to move forward. The difference between the Target movement and the Montgomery bus boycott is they had enough sense to go back to the church every night. And we didn't do that to our own peril. It's a critical time, Dr. Flippin, because this is the largest demographic of black people in our history since we've been in America who don't go to church. We're at 28%. It's the largest demographic of our people who self-identify as atheist. We're at 8%. We have lost our capacity to believe, to hope, and to hold on. This is not a conference that we're sitting in. This is a gathering for anti-domestic terrorism. For what it is that MAGA is endeavoring to do is not diplomacy or democracy. It is demonic. And if we roll over and play dead, then we won't even have the right to call ourselves Lazarus. They didn't gut the Voting Rights Act, they declared war. They believed that they were not just redrawing the lines, but they were pushing us backwards. It is our responsibility, while it is that we grieve, to get mad. Not the kind of mad that makes you burn down your own neighborhood, but the kind of mad that makes you build something they can't burn. We keep fighting their battles on their turf. We march only after they shoot us. We file lawsuits only after they draw maps. We register voters only after they change the rules. We open businesses after they've already controlled the supply chain. You cannot sue your way into freedom. You cannot just sing your way into liberation. We have to have a strategy. Our strategy, ladies and gentlemen, is why it is that we have gathered, not for a kumbaya feel-good moment, but so that we would have our marching orders when we left this place. Something significant and striking needs to happen for us to realize that we are in the lost episode of the Twilight Zone. Like John, whether we are in the body or out, we do not know. And in order for us to move forward, we have to first have economic sovereignty. Build the kind of Wall Street that they won't let us live on. Here's what you don't even realize is our great first weapon of defense is our dollar. With all of the strategy that Ambassador Young pulled together, with all of the oration of Dr. King, the system was not moved by the speeches or the assembly. They were moved by the dollar being placed back into our pockets. We generate $1.8 trillion in annual spending power. We're the 14th largest economy on the planet, and we spend less than 2 cents of every dollar with each other. This is not an economic problem, it's a spiritual one. We've been taught to trust everyone except ourselves. The late Bishop Desmond Tutu said, at the end of every year, the poorest people in the community should vote to see whether the church is open the next year. If we had that vote in Atlanta, how many of our churches would have to close? Because there is no evidence of any community development, no evidence of community engagement. I pastor a few miles from here in Stonecrest, Georgia. We are the largest land-owning black church in America, sitting on 365 continuous acres. And when I got to the church in 2019, the only thing on our property was a mega church and a gymnasium. And I had to ask our leaders, what message are we saying to the community? The church is only good enough to shout and run, but is not doing anything to make a difference. As a consequence, I am pleased and proud to share with you all today that on Juneteenth weekend, we are breaking ground on 300 houses on our campus. One hundred of those houses we will only sell to millennials, because we've got to reinstitute what generational wealth is supposed to look like, and understand that Atlanta and Georgia, Central Georgia, is the only place where people are on waiting lists to get in an apartment. Home ownership is the anchor of our generational wealth, which is why a whole lot of our zip codes have been redlined. In February, we'll be breaking ground on our phase 2, and our phase 2 is very important because, Kasim, this is the very first time in American history that there are more 60-year-olds than 16-year-olds. There are more senior centers than there are middle schools. And so on our campus in February, we break ground for the first time in America. I need you to hear this very carefully. First time in America, we are building senior housing, here's where you shout, for seniors who have custody of their grandchildren. So that we're able to do an intergenerational economic development of what it is supposed to look like to foster community in a way that hits from boomers to Gen Z. We need black banks, we need black bonds, we need black investment circles, and we need to support black businesses. Part 2 of what it is that we have to do is political realignment. Stop begging and start demanding. We have given 90% of our vote for 60 years, and still we beg for appointments. Every black vote must now come with conditions, not loyalty, but leverage. Pastors, do not let politicians speak in your pulpit who don't show up for your congregants. Just because you are our color don't mean you are our kind. You got to make sure that they ascribe to our values, to our policy, and for our future. Something is out of order when our public school teachers have to get a side job just to decorate their classrooms. Something is wrong when our veterans do not have access to mental health. Something is wrong when our young people who are returning citizens still cannot get access to capital and can't get a loan from the bank to start a business, but can get a loan to get a used car. Something is out of order when it is that they'll shut the street down for us to have a party, but they will not open up the banks for us to have access to capital and loans. We've got to redo the system, and power concedes nothing without a demand. I'm sick of these preachers who are showing up just to get certificates and citations, but the people in your community can't get nothing done. You are nothing more than a white evangelical in blackface if you will not speak truth to power about what is taking place in our community. My dear Soledad sister behind me, who's speaking later in just a moment, will tell you that we've got to engage in legal warfare. Here is the seminal significant difference between the civil rights movement and Black Lives Matter. The seminal significance difference is our generation curated hashtags when the previous generation fostered lawsuits. If we are not changing laws, if we are not putting something in the books, then we are just doing it for Instagram. We have to call up the Black Legal Defense Consortium, every HBCU law school, every black firm, every civil rights legal organization to unify and coordinate a litigation strategy. We don't fight one case at a time anymore. We file it in every state simultaneously. So this is not just Georgia's fight. It's Tennessee's fight. It's Louisiana's fight. It's Alabama's fight. It's South Carolina's fight. It's North Carolina's fight. It's Virginia's fight. And all of the South know ain't no fight till Georgia get involved. We are the home of the civil rights movement, but this is not a retirement home. This is the home where we get the party started all over again. Y'all better roll your sleeves up and get ready to fight for something significant that is getting ready to happen. There has to be an educational agenda. They cannot redistrict our thinking. A mind, Brother Campbell, is a terrible thing to waste. And we're not putting our heads together to strategically figure out why it is that student loan debt is now higher than credit card debt. I am grateful to God that this Sunday I'm going to be giving scholarships to 245 students to go to HBCUs for free. You didn't hear what I just said. 245 children, most of whom will be first in their family, are going to college for free. I was convicted of consciousness 2 years ago that while it is already, we've given out $2.3 million worth of college scholarships this year, and we'll do another million on Sunday. I was convicted. I'm a third-generation preacher out of the AME Church. My grandfather's a bishop in the AME Church. My father's retired senior bishop of the AME Church. Over 50 years of being in the black church. I have never seen the black church give a scholarship to a young man who wanted his barber's license. I've never seen the black church give a scholarship to a young lady who wanted to be an esthetician. Never seen the black church help a young man get his HVAC license or figure out how to get into the union to be a plumber. And so on this coming Sunday, aside from the 235 that we're sending to HBCUs, Atlanta, I want you to celebrate with me. We are sending 400 black students to trade school. You cannot take W.E.B. Du Bois and throw away Booker T. There's more than one path to success, and you do not have to have a liberal arts education in order to be successful. We got truck drivers that are making more money than people with a bachelor's degree, but you are so highfalutin and arrogant that you look down on people who work with their hands and have a trade, and yet you forgot that Jesus was a blue-collar worker. We got to figure out how to reevaluate what does success look like in our community in order to do something significant. The fifth, and I close, is there has to be a generational transfer. There has to be a generational transfer, and I say this respectfully. There has to be a generational transfer, and I say this respectfully. There has to be a generational transfer, and I say this respectfully. This is the oldest leadership Black America has ever had. And the problem is we have not equipped ourselves for succession because we had the trauma of assassination. So we never prepared anybody to take our place. but you cannot die with the baton in your hand. Pass the torch to the generation that is coming behind. I am embarrassed. I'm embarrassed at 54 to be called a young leader. I'm embarrassed at 54 to say that I am the voice of the future. It is a generation that is coming behind us, who is prepared, who is equipped, and the problem is they are gifted but don't have an opportunity. Aren't you tired of being the first? Aren't you tired of being the only? Aren't you tired of being the token Negro just so that you can feel important? Because now you go to Saks and you go to Dillard's and you go to Martha's Vineyard. Get off your high horse and go back to the old Negro spiritual. If I can help somebody as I pass along, if I can cheer somebody with a word or with a song, it is only then that your living is not in vain. Go tell Donald Trump, go tell Governor Kemp, go tell all of the racists, Black America is back, and you have poked the bear. If you see us fighting with a bear, don't help me, help the bear, because we are ready to fight, and if we must fight, increase our courage, Lord, in Jesus' name. Now that y'all stop going to Target, stop going to Chinese stores. God bless you, and have a great day.
So I was supposed to give you a few minutes to stand, but you already stood up. We are so pleased to have you today. So pleased that we were welcomed by the Reverend Alexander and his congregation. Let's give all the volunteers that have helped to put this together a hand. I've heard a lot of names called, so I'm just going to call a few more, and some of you will get the feeling. Fannie Lou Hamer, Barbara Jordan, Yvonne Burke. All right, just a few. Grace Hamilton, John Dell Johnson. All right, just a few. Gene Young. All right, just a few. Cynthia McKinney. And we got a few more to come along because we've got Keisha Lance Bottoms. I am not going to be long. I'm going to stay within my time frame. I'm pleased to be here with the former mayors. And Kasim is absolutely correct. This is a time for all of us to come together. There are no differences between us. There is no space between us on the issues that we face. And that ought to say something to you. That there can't be any differences in the circles that you travel, in the networks that you are a part of. This is a time for coming together. So with that, I have the pleasure, the honor, to say a few words about another speaker, a shiro, a modern day civil rights warrior, Sherrilyn Ifill. She's a civil rights lawyer. and the founding director of the 14th Amendment Center for Law and Democracy at my alma mater, at Kasim's alma mater, and Andrew Young's alma mater, Howard University. Just to put it in place, from 2013 to 2022, she served as president and director counsel of the NAACP Legal Defense and Education Fund, the nation's premier civil rights law organization, fighting for racial justice and equality. She recently served as a Ford Foundation Fellow and as the Kinsley Visiting Professor for Leadership in Progress at Harvard Law School, and as a fellow at the Museum of Modern Art. Eiffel is currently the Vernon Jordan Distinguished Professor in Civil Rights at Howard University Law School, where she founded the 14th Amendment Center for Law and Democracy. Her tenure at the helm of the NAACP Legal Defense Fund was widely praised for elevating its profile, voice, and influence, and for expanding and deepening its work across multiple areas of civil rights law. Her voice and analysis played a prominent role in shaping our national conversation about race and civil rights during this period of racial reckoning. She has come to us graciously. When we reached out to her to tell her about this unity event, I was asked, how many people do you expect? I said, we don't know. She said, are you sure you're gonna have an event? I said, oh, we're gonna have an event. And people will come. They will come because they want to hear from you. They will come because they want to have the advantage of hearing personally from you about the case that is before us and what we need to do to move on. So please give a round of applause for Professor, Howard University Professor, Sherilyn Eiffel.
Thank you so much, Mayor Franklin. I'm gonna still call you that. Reverend Alexander and all of the mayors who are assembled and all of the council members and state house members and young people and everybody, thank you so much for being here. It is so encouraging to see you because your presence here tells me you understand that we are in a state of emergency in this country. A few things to begin. I must acknowledge the presence of my dear friend and a woman who I admire so tremendously, Mrs. Billie Aaron, and I was so happy to see her here this morning. I also want to acknowledge Melanie Campbell, who's the executive director of the National Coalition of Black Civic Participation, a true colleague in civil rights work. And I want to give a shout out to my cousin, who is here, my blood cousin, is here, and that is the Reverend Dr. Earl Eiffel, who is a retired presiding elder in the AME Church here in Georgia. But of course, most of all, I want to acknowledge Ambassador Andrew Young. Such an extraordinary man, a former client of the Legal Defense Fund and former board member of the Legal Defense Fund and a true American hero. And what I love so much about you, as you could hear this morning, is that you have not stopped speaking. You have not stopped telling the truth. You didn't go off to pasture. You're still in it, and I thank you so much for that. Let me set some other things straight. Are there any deltas in the house? I'm just saying. I know y'all bring the women last, but that's okay. I'm good for it. I'm good for it. And yes, just how the Knicks did it is how we're gonna do it. It's gonna look like it's over. Some people are gonna go to sleep because they're gonna think it's over. But it's not over until the horn blares, okay? So I thought I would begin to just set the tone of where we're at by beginning with reading you a piece, the beginning of a piece that I wrote the day the Supreme Court issued the Louisiana versus Calais decision, which is the Louisiana redistricting case. And then after that, we can get into the nitty-gritty. Now, I am a civil rights lawyer and have been started at the ACLU. I won't even give the year, long time ago. And then went to LDF and became a voting rights attorney. And I love litigation. I left the Legal Defense Fund for all the reasons that Jamal Bryant spoke about the importance of succession. And that organization has a dynamic leader in Janae Nelson, who was my deputy, and I knew she was ready. And when you have trained up someone and they are ready, even if you could keep going, you gotta get out of the way and let them flex. But I also really wanted to get back to teaching. I had taught law school, and so I'm not a preacher, but I am a teacher. And so you might want to be ready. You might want to have a little piece of paper and a pen or your phone or something, because you're going to get some information that you're going to want to follow up on later. But this is what happened when the Supreme Court issued this decision at the end of April. The night before the 6 conservative justices on the Supreme Court issued their decision in a case that betrays the sacrifices, determination, and demands of generations of Black people in this country for political voice and representation, they feasted. Decked out in tuxedos and formal gowns, they assembled for a state dinner held in a White House controlled by the most explicitly and destructively racist president to serve in 150 years. They dined on Dover sole, expertly prepared and bathed in a nutty brown butter, the New York Times said, tender spring ramps, and potatoes pave. They raised glasses in toast to the British king who was present, Charles. One justice, Clarence Thomas, was, it appears, the only Black guest in the room. I imagine they all slept well after this event. Perhaps Justice Alito was awakened after a few hours to take an antacid tablet, or just to marvel once more in the hours before dawn at his handiwork, an opinion that signals the demise of the most consequential and important civil rights statute to ever be enacted by Congress, the Voting Rights Act. The 1982 amendments to that act, Congress made clear, in the 1982 amendments to that act, Congress made clear that electoral practices that result in the diminution or denial of Black voting power violate Section 2 of the act, which protects against electoral practices that deny us an equal opportunity to elect our candidates of choice. Congress's adoption of this test, this effects test, was explicitly enacted to overturn the Supreme Court's 1980 decision in Mobile versus Bolden, in which the court held that only practices that were intentionally discriminatory could violate the Voting Rights Act. The effects test adopted by Congress in 1982 was upheld by the Supreme Court 4 years later in a landmark case, Thornburg versus Jingles. But it has been a white whale for a certain generation of conservative lawyers shaped in the crucible of the Reagan Justice Department. The 1982 amendments to the Voting Rights Act was a civil rights triumph. In fact, Civil rights groups and their allies on Capitol Hill ran circles around Republicans who were opposed to the amendment. They won bipartisan support for the amendment. That coalition was better organized, and it brought a range of expertise to lobbying, organizing, and litigation. But in the Reagan Justice Department, a young lawyer named John Roberts, who was special assistant to the Attorney General and then in the White House counsel's office, was the point person tasked with jettisoning the adoption of the effects test, even after the House had voted overwhelmingly to support it. Roberts deemed the effects test as a radical experiment, and he insisted in copious internal memos, which you can read online, that it would create a quota system of Black electoral districts. At one point, when cautioned about committing these views to writing, Roberts grew agitated at the momentum building for the bill's passage and exclaimed, "Something must be done." What the conservative legal elite were unable to defeat on Capitol Hill in the early 1980s, they worked to defeat in the courts over the ensuing decades. The Voting Rights Act has been under attack from those forces with steady and unrelenting challenges for more than 30 years. The ascension of lawyers who were graduates of the School of Justices Rehnquist and Scalia to the highest levels of the federal judiciary began to bear fruit in the early aughts and peaked with the Supreme Court's decision gutting Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act in 2013 in Shelby County versus Holder, a case authored by Chief Justice Roberts. And now Louisiana versus Calais has completed the work. In the 40 years after the passage of the 1982 amendments to the Act, Black political representation grew exponentially, largely because of the network of lawyers and activists who could monitor redistricting efforts at the state and local level. In every redistricting cycle since 1971, the state of Texas has been found to engage in racial gerrymandering. The work to overcome it has been successful despite continued chipping away at the integrity of the Act. When the Congressional Black Caucus formed in 1971, it had 13 members. It now has 62. In 1981, before the amendments to Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, Mississippi, Alabama, and this state, Georgia, had no congressional representation, although the population of those states were 35%, 26%, and 27% at the time. There were only 1,500 Black elected officials in the country in the decade before the passage of the 1982 amendments to the Voting Rights Act. Today, there are more than 10,000. Those changes are not due to the goodness of the hearts of legislative redistricting committees. That progress is due to the continued vigilance and, yes, the threat of litigation under the Voting Rights Act by local and national activists and lawyers. But once again, as in the Shelby County decision, this Supreme Court has decided that they have seen enough. And from their sheltered perch on First Street in Washington, D.C., they have deemed the hard-fought-for work of ensuring minority representation as done. Justice Alito called it a cause for celebration. Victory, they declared, that no longer requires the protection of the amended statute that even President Reagan, who reluctantly signed it, had to concede was the crown jewel of civil rights statutes. So I'll stop there. What does it mean? Can it all happen again? Where are we? You heard a lot about Atlanta and about Georgia, and I live in the People's Republic of Maryland and the even more radical People's Republic of Baltimore. So we will have our representation, and you will have your representation. But you sit within a state, and you sit within a country, and you sit within a region that is prepared to snuff out the political voice of Black people. And so I wanna, and I hope the screens will have my little PowerPoint so we can kind of walk through precisely what has happened. And if you could just switch to the next slide. I want to show you your first Black congressman from Georgia, Jefferson Franklin Long. He served only a few months. In 1871, he had been born enslaved. He was a businessman. He was a tailor and a civic leader. He worked with Bishop Henry McNeil Turner, a stalwart of the AME Church. And he was assigned to fill an unexpired term to serve in the House of Representatives. And he is distinguished as the first Black person to ever speak on the floor of the House. And you know, we love our firsts, but I'm with Pastor Jamal Bryant. I'm young enough that I'm not that interested in firsts anymore. We should have had all the firsts already. Moreover, I'm interested in what do the firsts do when they get there. So he was the first to speak on the floor of the House, but what did he talk about? Please go to the next slide. At the time, there was a proposal to ease up on the bar on insurrectionists, those Confederates who had betrayed our country, in having them serve in office. Most of the white people Northerners were now prepared to let bygones be bygones. And so there was a plan to allow insurrectionists to serve. And this is what Long said in the House. He said, "Do we then really propose here today, when the country is not ready for it? When loyal men still dare not carry the stars and stripes, that's our flag, through our streets? For if they do, they will be turned out of employment, to relieve from political disability the very men who have committed these Ku Klux outrages?" In other words, he's saying, are we going to restore the right to participate in the political process to those people, those insurrectionists who by violence sought to upend our political system? His voice was important. He spoke truth to power that day. The House voted anyway, 118 to 90, to restore them. But that Black man said what had to be said. So I'm interested in talking about Black political voice and the extinguishing of Black political voice. And when I tell you that we are at the precipice of an effort to do precisely that, I do not exaggerate. You know that a majority of Black people in this country still live in the South. 54% of Black people live in the South. A majority of Black people in this country has always lived in the South. I tease my friends in New York, I say, not Brooklyn, not Brooklyn, the South. What is the state that has the largest number, not percentage, number of Black people? Texas. What's the state that has the largest percentage of Black voters and Black people? Mississippi. And I emphasize this to you because we are in a moment when choices are being made about how to deal with this Louisiana versus Calais decision. And there are a set of our allies who are concerned about political power, and we're concerned about political power too, and we are allied with their view of what this country should be. But understand, they are beginning to listen to people who are saying, this is not going to be a problem for us because we're just going to elect more Black representatives up north because we're going to gerrymander and get more districts. And so the number won't really go down because they think we're just fungible. Understand? Some of them, these experts who are talking to Democratic leadership are saying, yes, we won't have Black representatives from Alabama. We won't have Black representatives from Mississippi. We won't have Black representatives from Tennessee, but we'll have more Black representatives from Massachusetts and Rhode Island. The Voting Rights Act was created to ensure that Black voters would have a voice in our political system. Not Black elected officials, Black voters. Black voters, Black voters. So understand that even if you feel good in Atlanta and I feel good in Baltimore, there are plans afoot to extinguish the voice of Black people. You hear me? In the political process. So you cannot get complacent here. As a matter of fact, the pressure is on you and me and the people who are protected to do the work more powerfully and more deeply. Okay, next slide. Let me tell you what happened in the Louisiana versus Calais decision. I say the current majority killed the most powerful provisions of the Voting Rights Act, first in Shelby County versus Holder in 2000. Oh, wait. You're right. Your next representative in the House of Representatives, so you had Mr. Long in 1871, and the next one you got was in 1972. And that's Ambassador Andrew Young. I love him, but I didn't say that so you could applaud him. I said it so you could understand it was 104 years. You saw it? Because by the time they got through all the voter suppression tactics and all the southern states enacted their new constitutions at the turn of the century, all of that progress was gone, in case you think it can't happen. It's the same 15th Amendment. Same 15th Amendment, same 14th Amendment. Do you understand that it was 1871 and then 1972? Next slide. What can we learn from this case? So I hesitate to speak in absolutes, but the Voting Rights Act is a shell of its former self. The two key provisions were Section 5 and Section 2. That's how I started my career litigating Section 2 cases. We no longer had preclearance, and that's why we've been subjected to all this voter suppression over the last 10 years and 20 years, and now we don't have Section 2. The Supreme Court laid the groundwork with a case called SSFA versus Harvard. You remember the affirmative action case? Yeah. You may think that has nothing to do with this, but it is connected to this, because it was in that case that the Supreme Court started floating this idea. They didn't start floating it, they've been floating it for a while, but the majority really leaned into the idea that the effort to remedy racial exclusion is itself racist. And essentially that same theory is what they have applied to the Voting Rights Act in Calais. They are saying, let's suppose racial discrimination happens. For you to use race to try to fix it, like for you to try to redo the maps, to give Black voters an opportunity to participate in the political process, well, now you're using race, and that makes you racist, and that's unconstitutional. That's why they opened their decision with the words, "our colorblind Constitution." Because who can argue against a colorblind Constitution? Doesn't that sound great? A Constitution that doesn't care what color you are. Our Constitution is not colorblind, never has been. It opens with the words, "we the people," that excluded millions of Black people then present in the United States. It continued with a provision that authorized the counting of enslaved people as 3/5 of a person. It continued on from there with a provision that allowed this country to continue participating in the international slave trade until 1808. Yes, in the Constitution, they call it the importation of persons because they didn't want to use the words slave trade. Importation of persons. And then, of course, when we get to Reconstruction and we get our 3 amendments, the 13th Amendment, ending slavery, the 14th Amendment, promising equal protection for the first time in our Constitution, is all about us. It's all about making Black people citizens. I've read the legislative history. That was the intention. That was the plan. That was the purpose. The 15th Amendment, which says you can't deny people the right to vote on account of race, color, or former condition of servitude, is all about race. There's nothing colorblind about our Constitution. But they are saying that so that they can sound like they are on the higher ground. See, we are being racist, or as Justice Roberts would say, engaged in the sordid business of divvying up people by race. That's what he said in 2007. He didn't want to participate in that sordid business because he's too delicate. His sensibilities are too delicate to deal with what lives in this country's DNA. So the court laid the groundwork for not only this, what it has done to the Voting Rights Act, which is bad enough, but this theory is the groundwork for dismantling other civil rights laws as well. Because if remedying racial discrimination in ways that use race are unconstitutional, then our civil rights laws would all stand as an empty shell. And if the effects test that was part of the 1982 amendments to the Voting Rights Act also is unconstitutional, then the disparate impact standard can't be far behind, and that means employment discrimination. That means the Fair Housing Act and housing discrimination. We have 3 major statutes that came out of the Civil Rights Movement. The Civil Rights Act of 1964, which the president has attacked in every way possible, with every executive order possible, and has said out of his mouth that he believes the Civil Rights Act of 1964 damaged our country because it discriminated against white people. The Voting Rights Act of 1965, which has been gutted, and the Fair Housing Act of 1968, which would rely on the very theory that this court is saying is unconstitutional. We're sitting here with this giant in front of us, and we're talking about the Supreme Court wiping the slate of every sacrifice that was made. I'm not trying to scare you, I'm just telling you the truth. What we now know about the Supreme Court, in my view, is that any future voting rights legislation that we pass will be struck down or rendered impotent by this court if it is based in any way on ameliorating racial disparities or discrimination in voting. And this includes the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act. I say this because we have to understand we have a long game and a short game. And in the long game, we have to be talking about Supreme Court reform. Have to. Stop letting people scare you into thinking it's some terrible, awful thing. We haven't always had 9 justices on the court. We've had 6. We had 8 at one point. Well, we even had a seat that was stolen from President Obama, and we had 8, and they were fine with it. Congress has that power. Congress has the power to expand the size of the court or shrink it without constitutional amendment. They have that power. They have the power to expand or shrink the court's jurisdiction, the kind of cases they can hear, and in what posture they can hear them. They can create mechanisms in the lower courts, like 3-judge courts, for hearing certain kinds of cases. They can shift the circuits. They can shrink the budget for the court. They can't shrink judicial salaries, but they can say, you're only taking, I'm just using this as an example. I'm not saying this is what would or should happen, but I'm just saying when I was in law school, the Supreme Court took about 150 cases a year. Now they take 60. Do you need all of those clerks? You got computers and everything. We used to go in the book and had to look up and shepherdize cases and do it by hand. I don't mind, but it sounds to me like you need help. Maybe you need more justices to help you take on a full load. So I think we need 13 justices on the court. There are 13 federal judicial circuits. There should be 1 for each circuit. So we have to look at Supreme Court reform, how we confirm them, how we address the issue of justices misleading the Senate in their confirmation hearings. Like, there have to be consequences for these things. We have to really get in here and do work. I have called this period a time of refounding. The only glimmer of light in the unraveling of democracy in this moment is that we will have the chance to build a new one that will be closer to the one we always wanted. And that's where these young people come in. We're not asking you to return to the old thing. We have to be prepared to break new ground. as those who were before us did. But it's not that we're trying to get back the same Voting Rights Act. We're not trying to get back any of the things. We have to have the vision and courage that they did and the powerful democratic imagination that they had to create something new. We have to do what those radical Republicans in Congress did after the Civil War during Reconstruction, when they passed those 3 constitutional amendments that were meant for us. We're the only group of people in this country that has 3 constitutional amendments meant for us. And we have to have the kind of democratic imagination that those incredible civil rights activists had and understood what we needed to protect it when they created that legal infrastructure of those pieces of legislation that are being gutted by this court. Our job is not to go backwards. Our job is to go forward and to imagine what we really need in this time. I want to talk to you about the threats you face this year, and this is where your work comes in. We're going to see restrictions on mail-in voting. It's happening already. The president is saying that he's using the post office. I'm probably the only person in this room who has sued the post office. And I love the post office. You know, Gwen Eiffel stamp, forever, love it. But you'll remember in 2020, we had a new postmaster that President Trump had appointed, and there was a slowdown in delivering ballots. And I still remember the Saturday morning I called my litigation director and I said, I think we have to sue the post office. And we did sue the post office. And people don't know because, of course, we were in COVID then, and so all of our hearings were by Zoom. You know, I still credit Sam Spital, my litigation director, for being in that litigation every day. While you all were casting ballots and while they were counting, he was making sure with lawyers from Public Citizen that those ballots got delivered, that they got delivered in time to reach the deadline. Those are the ballots that President Trump wants, right? When he talked about fraud, where did he talk about fraud? We knew exactly where the ballots weren't getting delivered. Cleveland, Detroit, Atlanta, Cincinnati, right? So we were on it, and that's exactly where are the places he targeted. Who did he call when he said, I need 11,000 more votes?
All right.
Okay? So the new one now is he's telling the Postal Service they cannot deliver ballots in states that have not submitted their voter lists to ICE and the federal government. So unless you are on, because they're going to create an approved list of voters. Did you know that? Your federal government has arrogated to itself the power to create a list of voters that they deem legitimate. And that's the only list that they're saying can legitimately vote. And so they're telling the post office, I mean, if the suit hasn't been filed yet, I'm sure it will be, right? But they're telling the post office, you can't deliver ballots unless that state has submitted their voter list to us for screening. That's what I'm saying. You're thinking that you're not in it, but you're in it. ICE at the polls, for sure. Definitely gonna happen. Campaign of intimidation, for sure. We should not rule out this administration trying to create an opportunity for National Guard presence at the polls as well. Intimidation by far-right groups, who perhaps this year as well are standing by, standing up and standing by, or whatever he said. Intimidation in advance of the election, especially for Latino voters, making people fear what they will face if they come to the polls. And remember, you can be a legal immigrant. I mean, are you trying to be in an ICE detention center for months? The fact that you get out 6 months from now is not really the point, right? Robocalls with misinformation, online information through Elon and all his stuff. Campaigns flooded with tech bro money. Remember when Elon tried to buy the election, the judicial election in Wisconsin? You're gonna see a lot of that. Voter purges, cleaning your list. Refusal of courts to permit extended hours at the polls when there's interruptions on election day. We saw that in Dallas just a month or so ago. Election interference through, this is the one I haven't figured out yet, through access to machines, satellite interference, or other off-site tampering with election technology. We need to be talking with our attorney generals about that. Confiscation of voting machines and or ballots. Election officials who refuse to certify winners who are not Republicans.
All right.
Relentless challenges to unfavorable election outcomes. All of this is what we are absolutely going to face. Next slide, please. What can we do? Well, we can litigate. You don't have to worry because that will be covered by organizations like the ACLU, LDF, the Lawyers Committee, the Elias Firm. Yesterday, I came in from Raleigh, where LDF, the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, was having its staff retreat. So the whole staff came together down to Raleigh for the purpose of strategizing. And to look out at that room and see those 200 people, more than 200, 223 people. Now, when I left, it was 150, so Janae is doing the thing. 220 organizers, 21 organizers, policy experts, litigators, the whole shebang. And that's just one organization. They're ready, so the litigation's gonna happen. But understand, to litigate, we need to hear from you, right? We need top-notch communications during that election period. We need to be able to hear from you about what's happening at the polls so we can intervene. And that means you have to have systems, and I think the church is perfectly suited for this, to create systems of communication so that when people are having trouble at the polls, they are bringing that information centrally. And you can be working now to be in relationship with one of those legal organizations so that you can send them the information quickly. I've done it. I've been on election day 2020, I was in Alabama doing polling work at the polls, right? And troubleshooting. And I could be at one poll, and at that time, on Twitter, I would see someone saying, this is what happened in Morgan County, they're not letting us vote, or whatever, and how far is Morgan County? Get in my car, drive over to Morgan County, and get into it with the probate judge, right? We can do that, but we can't just walk up in any place with no information. We need to hear from you. So you need to create the infrastructure that's gonna allow that communication to happen. So we need continuous communication on election days, and including in early voting. We need communication with voters, you need, about the rules for mail-in voting, which may change close to the election day hours, accurate polling place information. You saw what happened in Dallas. People didn't know whether they could be at the polling center or whether they could be at the individual place. This is the kind of information that churches must have. You must have the accurate polling information so that you can be the person who and the group that shares it with the community so that they know you have good information. And that stuff should be up on your website, right? That there's a link to where you can find your polling place. We need pastors, civic leaders, open communications with your local police and sheriffs. You know, you have to get in people's face sometime. They have to see you and to tell them what you expect of them in terms of not interfering with voting. Especially you need to talk to your sheriffs, right? And so that relationship is very, very important, especially in your counties, in the rural areas. They need to see you, and I think it needs to be pastors who are calling up those sheriffs and saying, hi, I'd like to meet with you. We just want to make sure our people are going to be okay on election day. We don't want any interference. We want everything to go according to the law. And our people are coming, and I hope I can count on you if there's any trouble. What's your number? Give me your cell so I can reach you on election day. That's for pastors to do. We need open lines of communication with your friendly attorney generals, where you have AGs who are committed to voter protection. I certainly did that in 2020 in states like Pennsylvania and North Carolina and others. Your county board of elections, your county probate judge is your election administrator. I don't know what you call it here. I think it's county. Either you have a county board or they will have appointed a probate judge for you. County board. So you have a county board. Who knows them? Again, your civic leaders, your Delta groups, your pastors. Those are the people who are going to decide whether the polls stay open an additional hour because they didn't have the cords to plug in the voting machines as happened in Gwinnett County years ago. Those are the people you're going to have to call. You should not be looking for their number on election day.
All right.
Start now training your people about each office on the ballot and the powers of that office that are important for our communities. You know, my mantra's always been leave no power on the table, and boy, do we leave a lot of power on the table. That's why we have all the crazy sheriffs around the country now, too, because we never paid any attention to sheriff elections and school board elections. And the railroad commissioner in Texas, who actually is the public service person that sets utility rates. Kind of important.
Yeah.
But you see railroad commissioner and your eyes glaze over. We have to start voting the whole ballot, and you can't do that on election day. I'm wearing myself out. I'm thinking I really know what's going on. I am on these websites. Ballotpedia is one of them, ballotpedia.com. I stay on that website, and because they also have surveys. When the candidates have filled out surveys, you can get them on there, but it's exhausting.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work. So you can't wait till right before election day. You need to be every week educating yourself about a different office so you know what it has to do with. Judges are incredibly important. I heard there's a judge here, somebody's running. I mean, come on. So all of that work has to be done. To be a citizen is work. It is preparation. It is not showing up, casting a ballot on one day and getting a sticker that says I voted. So I would say stay engaged, don't lose momentum, push for reform. After election, understand the work does not stop. If the outcome of that election is terrible, we have a lot of work to do. If the outcome of that election is great, we have a lot of work to do. We should remember that this issue in Calais is not just about congressional seats. They're not doing it right now. Some of these places have delayed it. In Mississippi, they decided not to redistrict until January. In Alabama, there's some places where they're kind of holding off on it. But understand, this will also apply to county commissions, judicial districts. We're going to see local Black political voice being districted away. If you live in a majority Black county council district, if you live in a majority Black judicial district, they now can chop that district up without fear of anything. So that work still has to be done after the election. And then we have to begin to explore, as someone said, how we find new allies and strengthen the spine of the allies that we have and insist that our voice matters, our voice counts. And please stay focused. I came a little late here today because every Thursday is decision day at the Supreme Court, and I'm waiting on this birthright citizenship decision. And honestly, I was at the oral argument and I said, well, the Supreme Court's not going to do anything. The argument went really badly for the administration, and so I feel, after this Calais case, I don't know. I do not know. So we have decision day every Thursday. Get yourself connected with good sources of information. You can follow my newsletter on Substack, it's free. And make sure you know what's going on, because we are going to refound this country on the other side of this moment. We're going to build a new America. And the way things always work is that it is only as this one unravels that we will really have the chance to build the new one. In case, I know some of us are feeling sad, but the democracy, the country that worked so well for many of us in my generation, is over. It's not that country anymore. For many reasons, technology, all the things. And we can either just lament that, or we can see the opportunity in it. Because if we're honest with ourselves, that country wasn't great either, or I wouldn't have been able to be a civil rights lawyer for 35 years. Black people are still getting killed by the police. Prison's still locking up people who didn't commit crime. All the things have still been there. We have not had a perfect democracy. We have not even had a healthy democracy, if we are honest. So let's fix our eyes on creating more than what we had in the past. Every round should go higher. And I'm sorry Jamal is gone, because I saw him on the way to Montgomery. We happened to be sitting next to each other on the airplane, and we were talking about how terrible everything is, and I said, "You're gonna live to see it happen." Anybody know that song? Live, 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 live. You're gonna live to see it happen, but only if you do the work, and only if you have ambition to make it better than it was. Thank you.
But don't leave, because Professor Eiffel and I are going to have a little bit of a chat before we move on to the conclusion of the program. So y'all take a minute, stand up, stretch your legs. Not 10 minutes, 2 minutes to stretch your legs.
They don't need no minutes. We got to make this happen.
Stretch your legs in here. Don't walk out now.
See, that's why you shouldn't give them no minutes.
We shouldn't have given them any minutes. Well,
Be seated.
y'all stretch your legs and come on back here so we can
Just get started.
get started. Okay, well, Professor Eiffel, thank you so much for this. My name is Erin Haynes. I'm editor-at-large at the 19th, and I'm president of the National Association of Black Journalists. Thank you so much for that comment that you made at the end about staying informed. Black journalists are helping all of you to stay informed each and every single day, and we appreciate so many of you who are supporting us in that work. So, Professor Eiffel, it's really good to be with you at such a consequential moment in our democracy, because you have spent your career really helping all of us to understand that the law is never just about the courts. It's about power, it's about citizenship, it's about belonging. I've gotten to learn and get clarity from you in my reporting. Class is already in session today. That PowerPoint was excellent, and just a really powerful reminder to ask not just what happened, but what democracy requires of us in this moment. Now, you started with Jefferson Franklin Long in 1871, all the way to Ambassador Andrew Young's election to Congress in 1972, more than a century later. Much has been mentioned here today about the unbroken line of 7 black mayors, longer than I've been alive in the city that I'm from here, Atlanta. So to your point about the power of black voters, right? What does that long arc teach us about black political power, specifically in Atlanta and in Georgia? And why did you want to present that history today? Why is that so essential to understanding this post-Calais moment?
Thanks, Erin. Because I think that for all the reasons that you heard earlier, many of us feel connected to Atlanta, even if we are not from here, right? We feel like this is a locus of black political power and of black advancement. And I really think it's time for people who are in that position and in those communities where they have been able to build something strong and where they feel firmly on strong political ground, that they now have to give back to the rest of us in the diaspora of black people in this country who are not in that position, right? Who are not in a position where they are in jurisdictions where they have been able to build the kind of black political power that they need. And to understand that we are all in this together in case people think they're going to escape this moment. We are not going to escape this moment as a people unless we are activated in the places where we have power.
You're making such an important point, and you talk about the relationship between law and democracy, right? So what does it say about American democracy when we see these courts narrowing the path for black voters to do just that and to be able to elect candidates of their choice?
Well, I have said often that it becomes increasingly difficult for me to, with a straight face, talk about the law in the way that I did years ago. I mean, I am so happy I'm not teaching constitutional law this semester. I can't even tell you, because what sense can I make of it? And I am committed to telling my students the truth. So I think we're in a situation and a moment when the law is revealing itself. It's revealing what about it is not real. It's revealing what about it is not on firm ground. It's revealing the ways it can be manipulated for the ends of power. And we have to start talking more honestly about it. I say this to my colleagues all the time because we all talk about the rule of law. And I say, well, you use that phrase, you know, but I have clients when I was leading LDF who are on death row for, you know, or who were sentenced in ways that really violated the Constitution. They didn't experience the rule of law. So we're making it as though we had it and now we've lost it, you know? So I think what's being revealed now, again, I choose to see the positive of it, is that this is vindicating. It's so funny, all the hatred they have for CRT, critical race theory. It's vindicating everything critical race theorists said, that the law is a construct. It's been constructed to tell and to elevate certain narratives, and that our narratives have legitimacy as well, and that we can actually argue from the place of our narratives and make perfect, logical, legal sense. It's just that those narratives have not been the preferred ones to be heard in a courtroom or to be written in a brief. So actually, again, it's a moment of legal transformation. You'll notice how many elite lawyers are very quiet right now. They're very quiet because you have the lawyers who bent the knee and signed the little thing with Trump. And you have a whole bunch of people who are just kicking. The only lawyers you hear hollering on TV and everything are civil rights lawyers and lawyers working for justice. And you don't hear that. Where are the rest? Where are they? How come it's just us talking? You know why? Because they're hiding. They're hiding behind the bench. So they're really showing us. They're really showing us something about law and lawyers. And I've said before, you know, Thurgood Marshall created the concept of the civil rights lawyer. It didn't even exist before him. A lawyer who just devoted 24/7 of their practice to civil rights law. And so it's really showing who's really at the top of the profession. The people who are not scared and who are willing to keep using the law. We keep litigating even when, like, we get turned back. We try to find another angle and another angle and another angle. So who are the people who really believe in the rule of law? Who are the people holding the rule of law? Who are the people whose narratives should be preferred in law? So I choose to see this moment that way as well. We will not engage with law on the other side of this the same way we have on this side.
So then, you're right, we are seeing some of those lawyers stand up. You've got people here in this room who say they are ready to stand up. What tools would you say remain available to protect black voters, right? State constitutions, state courts? Is it local organizing, congressional action? You talked about litigation. Where do you see the most promise?
So we have an array of tools, right? We have litigation, we know that. There are some jurisdictions where the courts are so hostile, I wouldn't recommend doing too much of it, but we have litigation. We now know what the Supreme Court's gonna do, so there's lots of cases we're not gonna be bringing up to this court because we know what they're gonna do. You have, you know, what I call policy work, and, which is really trying to influence your legislature and your local governments to do things. You've seen a lot of states doing state voting rights acts and so forth, and we should continue doing that state level work where you really have inroads. At whatever local level, you should be trying to affect whatever are the laws. You're seeing what people are doing around, you know, city council ordinances, around ICE and around, you know, voter protection. There are all kinds of ways in which we can be pushing at the local level to try to get the protections that we need. You have organizing. You need people to be organized and mobilized, not only so they can vote, but so that they can use their voice, so that they can be calling offices, so that they can be applying pressure. And if there's one thing I would say we just don't do enough of is apply pressure. We have to apply pressure, and pressure comes when you are harassing people. I'm sorry, I don't mean that in the legal sense. I mean, like you call all the time, they constantly hear from your community, the pastors call and a delegation came to sit down, the squeaky wheel does get the grease, and so we have to use more pressure. We can do letter writing campaigns, we can do social media campaigns, we can do all of the kinds of ways that we lift things up. We also can educate ourselves. We have to know what is going on. We also, if you have some dollars, you need to come up off them for your candidates of choice and for the organizations that are doing the work. I know what it's like to have to raise tens of millions of dollars a year to keep a litigation outfit going. It's no joke. It is the reason for the gray hairs is not the litigation, it's the fundraising. So give them some money. But really try to focus in on that education and that organizing. Get that little app on your phone, 5 calls. It's called 5 Calls. Y'all looking at me like y'all know. It's called 5 Calls, and it's going to tell you all the, your representatives. You're going to put in your zip code, and it's going to give you the 5 calls that you should be making to the people who represent you. So you have to start kind of having these little hacks that will keep you engaged. And then the last thing I would say is stop trying to get out of jury service. Just stop it. They used to keep us off juries. They still keep us off juries. We just saw what happened with Carmelo Anthony. Stop saying you want to get it. Stop making jokes about it. It's not funny. For those of us who practice law, you cannot be arguing about what you see in the criminal justice system and then you don't go to jury service. So stop making a joke about it. It's part of your citizenship responsibility, just like voting.
Well, the last thing I'll ask you, you mentioned this as a moment of refounding. We're less than a month away from America's 250th anniversary, right, which is going to be observed.
Yeah.
So at a moment when we're contemplating that, what would you say about what this moment reveals about whether America is still willing to expand democracy or whether America is retreating from that promise?
Well, it's an iterative process. We expand and we retreat, we expand and we retreat, we expand and we retreat. This moment absolutely shows us that. The comparison to the post-Reconstruction period, to the backlash after Reconstruction, is just so on point. I mean, if I had another class, I would take you through, Supreme Court decision by Supreme Court decision that mirrors that period. How did Reconstruction end? Reconstruction ended because of 3 things: because of an inactive Congress that wouldn't pass civil rights laws after the Civil Rights Act of 1875. They didn't pass another civil rights law until the Civil Rights Act of 1957, which created the Civil Rights Division of the Justice Department, but really not till the Civil Rights Act of 1964. So Congress was asleep. Violence, Klan violence and mob violence, and the Supreme Court, that in a series of 4 decisions between 1873 and 1896, Plessy versus Ferguson, basically stripped away all of the power and promise of the 14th and 15th Amendments. Those are the conditions. Those are the conditions we're about to be in, right? So it just keeps cycling. But we're not waiting 60 years to be full citizens. We're not doing that. So therefore, we have to interrupt this process, because every time it has to be different, because we're in a different position. And so we have to take America as it is, and we see America with a clearer eye than our opponents do. We see it because we meet it in the places where it's weakest. That's why most of us are not going, USA, USA, not because we don't love our country, but because we see the problems, right? And we understand there's a lot of contradictions in that. But that's our superpower. Our superpower is that we know them better than they know us. And so we have to navigate this moment in a way that surprises them. And that's why I say the surprise is, you think we want the old stuff and we want new stuff, right? They know that playbook. We have to navigate ourselves to a place where we're asking for things they've even never, or demanding things, or creating things, or building things that they didn't think we ever would. That's the assignment that's before us. I was that little girl who dreamed of being in the civil rights movement. Literally, that's why I wanted to be a civil rights lawyer from the time I was 8. I saw the documentaries and I was like, oh my gosh, how could I have missed it? I just wanted to be in it,
Oh, you're in it.
I'm in it.
You are in it.
But you want to be in it because that looked so amazing. When you get in it, the charge is that you have to do something different. You can't be in it ever really again, not the way they were. You can only be in the new one that's been assigned to you. So we have to do the work that has been assigned to us in this period, and we have to live up to what someone said earlier. It is a sacred obligation to leave your world in a condition that is better than it was when you received it for your children. It is a sin. It is a sin that if we are honest right now, we cannot say that. We are not at this moment leaving our world and our country in better condition than our parents handed it to us. So we have an assignment.
Thank you so much, Professor Eiffel.
Let's give both of these ladies a round of applause. Cheryl and Cheryl and Phil, and national award-winning Aaron Hayes, who's the president of the National Association of Black Journalists. Now, I promise all y'all we can get you out of here in 3 hours, and I'm going to keep my word, but I'm going to ask you to stay with us for this last panel. One of the members of the organizing committee said this last panel is the most important panel of them all, because these are groups and organizations that are doing the work, that need help, that need support. I'm going to ask them to come on up right now. Come on up right now. You're already set up. Chairs are up. Microphones are up. Come take your seat. Give us 25 more minutes. The last word you will hear will be the pastor, who will send us off with a wonderful benediction. I don't need to do any acknowledgments. I think acknowledgments have already been made, but what I will tell you is on the back of your program is a QR code, and when you hit this QR code, every organization that you hear from today, you'll be able to go directly to that organization, and that organization will tell you how to be engaged with the work that they're doing. They need our work. They need our support. They're not just in Atlanta. They're in the rural communities. They're all over Atlanta trying to organize, trying to register folk to vote, trying to get people out to vote. You heard that our sister Kamala lost by 115,000 votes, when almost 1 million of us who were registered to vote, that's black folk only now, didn't even turn out to vote. So let's listen to this panel. Let's give them the respect of the work that they're doing every day. And I really appreciate all of you who stayed with us. And we look forward to you engaging with the organizations that are doing the work. And at this point, I will turn it over to the moderator of the panel, who is Mr. Ray McClendon. And he will take us through this very important last panel. You'll be glad that you stayed. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. I know it's been a long day, but we want to once again welcome you. My name is Ray McClendon. I'm president of Communities United for Justice. And we are fortunate today to be joined by 4 of Georgia's most respected civic engagement leaders. Helen Butler from the Georgia Coalition for the People's Agenda. Fanika Miller of Black Voters Matter. Richard Rose of Communities United for Justice. And Deborah Scott, Georgia Stand Up. I want to begin with a statistic that helps frame today's discussion. According to the Brennan Center for Justice, Georgia's racial turnout gap widened in 2022. White turnout was 8.6%, percentage points higher than non-white turnout. And the gap between white and black voters was roughly double what it had been in 2018. Black voter turnout was critical in both those races. The Brennan Center estimated that non-white voters had turned out, if they have turned out at the same rate as white voters, they would have cast more than 260,000 additional ballots, including 176,000 additional ballots from black voters. Now those numbers represent more than statistics, they are a warning sign. Many of the things that Professor Eiffel talked about, from voter suppression and misinformation, they suggest that barriers to participation, including those voter suppression efforts, may be preventing too many Georgians from fully participating in our democracy. Our challenge is not simply to increase turnout, it is to understand the causes of this growing gap and develop strategies that ensure every eligible voter has both the opportunity and the motivation to participate. At the same time, Georgia remains one of the nation's most important battleground states and one of the most important laboratories for voter engagement and civic participation.
The question before us is not whether we can increase participation. The question is how. Each panelist will have 5 minutes to share their strategy for 2026. Following their presentations, we hope to be able to take a few questions. And first of all, I'd like to begin with the challenge identified by the Brennan Center reference that I made. And this question goes to Richard Rose to lay out the foundation as we start. The turnout gap between white and black voters more than doubled between 2018 and 2022. What do these numbers tell us about the current state of civic engagement in Georgia, and where should we be investing our time, resources, and organizing capacity to reverse that trend in 2026? Richard. Richard Rose is the founder and CEO of Communities United for Justice, a nonprofit dedicated to advancing political, economic, healthcare, and environmental justice. He previously served as president of the Atlanta NAACP, where he helped organize a statewide coalition of civic engagement organizations working to increase black voter participation. Richard, your proposed 51 county strategy focuses on the counties that account for approximately 89% of Georgia's black voters. Walk us through that strategy and tell us why you believe it can not only close the turnout gap, but dramatically increase black voter turnout in 2026.
Sure. So in 2018, Stacey Abrams came within about 50,000 votes of being governor. And as I looked at the numbers, the state used to publish the voter registration totals of every precinct in every county in the state. They don't do that anymore. I guess it got too useful for us. But so I realized that we have to go where the big numbers are. At that time, there were 17 counties that had 75% of black voters in Georgia lived in just 17 counties. We got 159 counties. And so I was president of Atlanta NAACP, so we looked at those 17 counties and added a couple of more because some months they were closer, they were in the 17 or in the 18. And so we focused on that to make sure we had something going on from every organization in each one of those 19 counties. Well, that's not good enough anymore. I don't think so. There are 2.5 million, close to 2.5 million black voters. We got to get 2.5 million voters to the poll in November. And that means we have to touch 2.5 million voters, and we have to target where they live. That's 51 counties. In 2020, I didn't think we had the resources to get to more than those counties. Now I recognize that it doesn't matter where we have the resources. We have to figure out how to do that. Two things about solving problems is perspective and the objective. The objective has to be showing our power. I was talking to some young people and they say, well, we're making progress. Well, when you're making progress, that means that the destination is still not within your reach. So we have to do extra, and it's not fair, but this is what we have to do. My first year as NAACP president, I attacked Confederate monuments. A lot of people didn't understand why that was important. But every day across Georgia, Texas has the most Confederate monuments, but Georgia's number 2. Those messages tell white people and black people that white supremacy is the way to go. Those 3 guys that killed Ahmaud Arbery, every day they went to work, they passed Confederate monument in Brunswick, Georgia. And so the most powerful message is a subliminal message because you don't know you're getting the message. And so I started against that because my perspective, both of my parents grew up in Mississippi. Father in Vicksburg, mother in Itta Bena. And so we learned early. I grew up in Memphis, but I became a man in Atlanta when I came to college. And those things didn't change. The perspective that many, many white people believe that we shouldn't be voting, we shouldn't live on a certain street, we shouldn't have this job, we shouldn't have this political office, and we have to say, no. Silence gives consent, we can't be silent. I counted about, at first, 7 things that I call pillars of oppression. So I shared it with Shirley Franklin, and she gave me another one, misogyny. Now I'm up to 9. What we got to understand is that just because we got black people playing football on Saturday in the fall does not mean we don't have educational discrimination. It's not over. And so we have to embrace all of those things, but the easiest one that we have to do is to go and vote. That's the easiest one.
Thank you, Richard. Our next panelist is Helen Butler. Helen serves as Executive Director of the Georgia Coalition for the People's Agenda, an organization founded by Dr. Joseph E. Lowry that brings together more than 60 civic, civil rights, and community organizations across Georgia. For more than 2 decades, she has been a leading advocate for voting rights, civic engagement, and social justice. And she also serves as convener of Georgia's Black Women's Roundtable. Helen, Richard has outlined a geographic and relational organizing strategy. How does voter education and coalition and all voter, building coalitions, how does that all fit together in your organization, and what do you see we need to do to increase black voter turnout?
Thank you, Ray, and I'm glad to be here with all of these great organizations that's doing the work, and I want to give homage to the greatest coalition builder, Miss Melanie Campbell, who heads the Black Women's Roundtable. The People's Agenda prime mission is to improve the quality of governance by having an informed, active electorate that holds its elected officials accountable. So the first thing we got to do is make sure all of our people are registered to vote. We do that 365 days a year, not just during election season. But more importantly, Ray, we've got to have them educated. So we've got to be out there holding town hall meetings, finding out what issues are important to them, helping them to know what's on the ballot, how to really vote, what is involved in that process. But more importantly, holding those elected officials accountable. I think some of our speakers said today, don't let an elected official in your house just one time to say, vote for me. You got to ask them, what are you going to do for me as a plan of action? The other thing, and our great speaker, Ms. Eiffel, really brought it home. Coalition means a great thing. Dr. Lowry used to use the example of one finger is like one organization that can really poke your eye. But if you have all of those fingers put together, you exert more force and you're more powerful together. So that's what coalition means. But we've also got to protect that right to vote. So some of the things that we do to protect that right to vote, we're asking you to mobilize block by block. So that means you've got to make sure everybody on your block is registered, educated, and you get them out to vote. You provide the rides to the polls. But you've also got to make sure you go down to your board of election to protect that right to vote. Because on election day and during early voting, you want to make sure they haven't consolidated polling locations. You want to make sure that they haven't moved your polling location. You want to make sure that all the voting machines are working. You want to make sure they're accessible. You want to make sure that they start to vote on time, Because if not, we have a coalition of lawyers and community activists and people like you that can volunteer with us, that we train you how to assist voters if they encounter problems. I think someone talked about the churches. I think Pastor Brian talked about the churches being the communication hub. Well, we already have an 866 Our Vote election protection number that you can use to call to tell us those problems that you're experiencing on election day. And sometimes when there's major problems, we have lawyers that can get court injunctions to keep those polling locations open. Cobb had 11 such locations this past primary, and Fulton had 1. So that was because you reported those problems and we were able to keep them open. We've developed a relationship with election officials. They know that the Election Protection Coalition is coming every election cycle, so look out for us with our election protection shirts on. We've got to be the people that protect our right to vote. So that is what we're doing with the People's Agenda. And by the way, providing free rides to the polls. 877-524-8683 is the number. We're taking people right now during early voting period.
Thanks so much, Helen. Thanks
The
so
number
much.
again,
Thanks.
they asked me the number again, is 877-524-8683.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Helen. Thank you so much. Our next panelist is Fanika Miller. Fanika is National Field Co-Director for Black Voters Matter Fund, where she leads multi-state organizing efforts focused on voting rights, healthcare, and environmental justice. With more than 25 years of experience building Black political power across Georgia and the South, she brings expertise in both grassroots organizing and community economic development. Fanika, Black Voters Matter has been one of the nation's leading organizations focused on year-round engagement, as Helen was just discussing. What have you learned about sustained community organizing that can help us increase participation among infrequent voters, particularly young Black voters and Black men in the 2026 midterm election?
Thank you, Ray. And they've been up here teasing me, y'all, because my boss lady, every time she get a microphone, she start with a song. I told them that is not my ministry, honey. I just have the gift of gab. So I'm gonna talk y'all through it. Y'all can wave and shift a little bit if you want to. But happy to be here. We are a Black political power building organization. And when we say black with a capital B and a hard K at the end. That's right. We don't shy away from it, we don't shift from it. And what we encourage folks to do is to make sure and understand that we have one common enemy. And we can't be afraid to name that common enemy. It is the purveyor of every piece of oppression that we are facing, every political attack, all of the coordinated attacks. It's the arbiter of maintaining those Confederate monuments. And all too often, and we heard Pastor Jamal Bryant speaking about it, right? That we don't trust institutions the same. But some kind of way we've gotten away from those core principles. And we've gotten comfortable operating in the system of white supremacy. And sometimes we just gotta sit with that, right? We could have broke the back of Target, Home Depot, Delta, any of the corporations back in 2021 when we asked for the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. And if we had done the right thing when we had a trifecta, we wouldn't be here today, right? So we have to build power beyond elections. The hard work starts the day after the elections, and I don't have to reiterate most of the things that Ray and Ms. Helen have already shared around the civic infrastructure. But we need to be asking ourselves today, one, it's not business as usual. We need to be asking ourselves, do we want authoritarianism or not? And what are we willing to do to stop it? And what are we willing to do to pivot within our organizations, as individuals, in our churches, within our civic infrastructure, our sororities, fraternities, bicycle clubs, barbershops, beauty salons, at the corner store? What are we willing to pivot to stop authoritarianism and the attacks that are happening to Black folks and Black communities? And if you don't leave here with nothing else, get in your car and ask yourself, what am I willing to do? It's no longer good enough to be sick and tired. We can't be having keyboard courage and digital conversations online, right? Keyboard courage. It's time for us to get outside and to organize. So the things that we do across the country, and in particular here in Georgia, because this is my home, y'all. My cousin put a clipboard in my hand at 14 and showed me how a door knock can change my destiny. And I've been sold ever since, working to elect Black candidates up and down the ballot, and also build Black political power throughout the South, in the rural Black belt, and across the broader South. I like to tell people that I work from the weeping time of Savannah to Galveston, the Juneteenth, the birthplace of Juneteenth, right? Where we go from deep sorrow to great jubilation. Our people have always done this, and the times that we are in are nothing different from what we've experienced before. The difference is that we have more resources, more organizations, more access to information, more wealth, more materialism, and we are doing less with more. So we've got to look internally and be ready to go deep, right? And when we go deep, get recentered and get back to the basics, then come next week or when you leave here, now you got to be ready to go wide. That means that we have got to build and strengthen the civic infrastructure. We got to talk to our neighbors. We got to go up under the trees where we don't typically want to go. We got to get outside of the four walls of congregations, right? We've got to build a broad coalition of folks to reshape this democracy for what we want it to be. What's the song? No Time for Crying, We Got Work to Do? Some of y'all might remember that. All right, so here's what we are doing now. Defending voting rights and Black political power. We already know that a special session will be next week. We need to pack that Capitol every single day, right? Every single day. On the 17th, the 18th, y'all can go parade on Juneteenth and then come right back the 22nd through the 26th. We need to make sure that our voices are heard, and we need folks from across the state to be in that place. And we need to make no mistake that this is an attack on Black voting power. We need to reach and organize the 2 million folks, right? The Black people who are registered to vote and who never vote, the infrequent people, and we also need to expand our electorate, right? We can set up tables. I believe in strategic voter registration, our high school seniors, because they're a captive audience, and campus-based voter registration. We need our students to vote where they learn and vote where they live. We don't have time to be giving them a ride to go back home. You need to vote at that precinct that's closest to your campus, right? And we need to empower our young people to do that work and to lead for themselves. Freedom and Liberation Summer. We need to get outside. We need to be talking to folks. We outside. Everybody coming outside, right? So talking to people, organizing, voter education, knowing what's on the ballot, knowing your community like the back of your hand is what I tell my team. You got to know who are the folks who are leading, and who's your black business infrastructure. Who are the clergy who are leading in your community? Where are the civic infrastructure groups, right? And you can yourself call a meeting and collect all of those people. We don't have to wait for a person to come to do this work for us. And whether it's 5 or 500, you build the foundation with the people that you have, right? Develop the next generation of leaders. That is our young people, making space for them to lead. And as we heard from Ms. Eiffel, this is time for us to reimagine a new thing. Latasha says we got to radically reimagine, right? What has been working has never served us. It has not served us. We don't need the same type of healthcare system. We do need Medicaid expansion, but what happens to delivery of care? What happens with the insurance companies that are wreaking havoc and predatory? Reimagine what it is that we want, and let's build that brick by brick, right? Brick by brick.
Thank you, Fanika. Our final panelist is Deborah Scott. Deborah is CEO of Georgia Stand Up and We Vote, We Win, and has spent 4 decades organizing communities for, well, she was just a child when she started. She's been building coalitions across the South, a nationally recognized advocate for economic and social justice. Her work has been featured in MSNBC documentary series, Battleground Georgia. We got her batting cleanup here today for a reason, because she's gonna fire everybody up.
I'm tired.
She is going to stand up. Deborah Scott.
When our rights are under attack, what will we do? Stand up, fight back, and vote. Stand up, fight back, and vote. So today we're in the middle of a runoff election. Have you already voted? Yes? Have you? We're going to check the rolls. You know how to check the rolls? Okay, we're checking. We know you all are the educated, right? You're the talented 10. No, you're the talented 1%, right? Isn't that this room? I'm in the right room, right? But what we need you to do is to get active and get your organizations activated. Can you do that? So if you are, I'm going to shout out my sisters first. If you are part of the D9 organizations, stand up. Any D9 organizations, I see the Deltas, the Zetas, the AKAs, Sigma Gamma Rho. I see the brothers from Omega Psi Phi. I see the Alphas and the Kappas, right? So stop right there. How many chapters do you all have across the state? How many? Hundreds, right? In every single county, every Saturday, we need your sororities to come and fraternities to knock on doors. Can you do that? If we provide the place, if we provide the apparatus, so it's called Voter Action Network. It's not just about knocking on Miss Johnson's door. We want to knock on her door too. But we want to make sure we strategically knock on those who are registered to vote, right? We want to knock on their door and we're going to say, come on. Yeah, you're going to vote for Judge Penn. Okay, we nonpartisan. But the point is, D9, you all have, we collectively have so much power. It's time to put those tennis shoes on. You can keep the cute pearls on and all of that, but we need you activated. Can you activate your sororities and fraternities? Okay, wait a minute, stand up. Okay, Masons, where are you? Where are the Masons? Where's the Masons? Any Masons in here? Now, I love me some Masons, right? Y'all have buildings. Y'all have buildings all over the state. Can we use them? Yeah. We can use your building.
Yes, you can. In Covington.
Covington. Everywhere there's a Masonic temple, Eastern Stars, if you're in the room, Masons, we need your buildings. We need signs all across the state. We need a delivery system so that we know where we can go and get the literature so we can knock on doors, because the sororities and fraternities are going to be knocking on doors every single Saturday from August through November. Can we do that? Okay. Thank you. We need your buildings. You have cards in your seats or somebody can pass them out. We need to know where you have free space that we can use, because we have hundreds of people that are saying that they're willing to volunteer. They just don't know what to do. And what we're saying is we will help organize you. If you want to bring 50 people to Columbus, Georgia, we will help you with your literature, with the data, with the script, with your safety, because we have to get the vote out. Where's the 92%? Oh, tell me, you're a 92%. Are you a 92%er?
No.
Yes, you are. 92% of black women turned this thing out last time, right? So some people say only knock on those high opportunity voters, those people that don't normally come out and vote. But what what I'm saying is don't disrespect the 92% that come out every single time. Say, Ms. Johnson, thank you so much for what you did the last election. Thank you, Ms. Jackson, for what you did the last election. But now we need to call the cousins. We need to call your grandkids. We need, Maynard Jackson used to say arrive with 5. We need you to arrive with 50. Can you do it? Our lives are dependent on that. We don't have to say all the data again. The point is we need you all. This is an old school meeting in the church basement, but we cute now. We upstairs. The point of all of this, it's a party, it's a setup. We need you all to get involved right now. We can't wait until September. Every single day counts. Every day counts. They're trying to kill us. But the good thing about Georgia, you know, Georgia's a special place. It's such a sweet space. Because what happens in Georgia, what happens in Atlanta, it happens everywhere, because we're a special kind of aliens here, right? We're special kind of Indians, special kind of black folks here. So what we have to do is, where's my AU Center students? We need to hire these students for canvassers, which means we need money to hire students to knock on doors and knock on doors and knock on doors and knock on doors and have parties at the polls and have events and collard green cafes. We need all of that, and guess what? The movement is not being funded. The movement is not being funded. The foundations are not funding this work. So who should fund it? Who should fund it? We should fund it. And if you haven't given to one of these political organizations, a nonpartisan organization, C3, C4, give. We can't do it without your resources. No one else is coming to save us. We have to save ourselves. So what we're saying at Georgia Stand Up is we are willing to organize, mobilize, strategize with you. If your organization, if you want to get involved, we are here for you. Thank you so much. Peace and power.
Thank you for bringing it home, Sister Scott. And what's important to remember about this entire panel is that the challenge is that these folks have been on the front line through election after election after election with scarce resources, but still out on the battlefield. They know how to phone bank. They know how to write scripts for canvassing. They know how to create the right messaging for door knockers, some for Metro Atlanta and others across the state. But it takes resources to do that. And we need your help to bring those resources to the table. Now, there are financial resources, but we also need volunteers. That's right. We need the volunteer army, as Richard Rose likes to call it. We need an army across this state from all of those organizations. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel. The point is, these folks have the experience and expertise. They have the IT platforms. They have everything that we need in order to execute a strategy to touch every black voter in Georgia multiple times before November. And that's what it's going to take. By postcards, phone banks, knocking on doors. We need all of that. Black radio, we need all of that. But we need resources to do it, and we need volunteers. So everybody can do something. All of the organizations that were named, all of the churches, we need to start organizing now, connecting with these folks in order to put your people to work, where you don't have to try to do this all yourselves and figure out what should the message be. How do I do a phone bank? These people can train you on how to do that. So thank you for this time. Hopefully this gives you some ideas on how you can directly go back and connect with your organizations, your people, and be ready to volunteer, because it's going to take all of us. Nobody's going to save us but ourselves. Right. Thank you.
Hey, man, listen, why don't you give all our panelists a hand and thank them for the work that they do. Now, I've already done it, but if you look on the back of these programs, you can scan it and then you can volunteer with one of those organizations. And I've already done it during this service, and so thank you. Sure, Dr. Eiffel.
So sorry to interrupt, but just some of you are getting in your hands a little green booklet, and I want you to take it with you. It is a pocket version of those 3 Reconstruction amendments I told you about. You know, I carry around a pocket Constitution, but I want everybody to have a pocket set of Reconstruction amendments. It's got all the amendments. It's got a set of reading lists if you want to learn more about the 14th Amendment that you can. That should be in your purse, in your glove compartment, in your car. If you get pulled over, those are your freedom papers. Hold on to those and educate yourself about your constitutional rights. So I hope there's enough for everyone to get one. Thank you.
Listen, you got to give God the credit, give God the glory. We've had some brilliant, intelligent presenters on today. Just a few people we want to thank before you leave, and before you leave, you might want to do what they're doing. Get some photo shots in so you can put it on social media. But we want to thank Jamila Jones. She brought over 120 people here today. Fulton County Chairman Rob Pitts was here earlier. We thank him, and we see Councilmember Michael Bond here, and Andrea Boone was here, and we thank them for their continued work. And listen, we have Dr. Robert Franklin sitting right here, and just the brain power alone in this room could move mountains. Now, we've gotten a lot of information, and I leaned over to Dr. Eiffel, because she's a professor, and I said, Dr. Eiffel, usually, well, I didn't go this far, but I'll say it now. I said, usually in class, they give you an hour and then you get to take a break. It's hard to retain all of that, Dr. Babs. And our young people are leaving right now. And I was going to ask them to stay because I wanted to bring them up for prayer. But at least 5 to 10 times, we've heard how we need to get our young people involved. Yet, even today, we didn't give them a voice. So at our next meeting, we're going to make sure our young people have a voice. One takeaway that I'm taking with me out of all that I heard, one of the most important things that's coming up, and one of the most important things we need to do is pack the cap. Is that the right way to say it? Now downstairs I heard it a little different. But we need to show up at the state capitol. Let me say that again because y'all got quiet. We need to show up at the state capitol. It's one thing to complain at the beauty shop, it's to complain at the barber shop, to complain at home or at church, but at some point we need to show up at City Hall, we need to show up at the state capitol, and we need to make sure that we stand behind our elected officials. Can I get an amen on that? As we prepare to leave, I'm going to ask Pastor Ken Jelks if he'll come. Again, we want to thank all of our panelists. Want to thank, listen, special thanks to Brother Jabari Samama and his wife for putting this together and for coordinating all of this. Come on, we can do better than that. We want to thank all of our volunteers. Want to thank the food that was prepared, and we want to thank you for coming and staying these 3 hours. And we've done what Brother Jabari said we'd do. We're ending in a little less than 3 hours, and it's been my honor to sit next to the Honorable Shirley Franklin, who's just full of wisdom and experience, and to be up here with my brother, Honorable Bill Campbell, and others. God bless y'all. May God keep you, and Dr. Eiffel, may God continue to bless you. I think we'll be glad to do that. You want to stand? You want to give everybody your name?
Thank you, Sister Sharp. We heard a lot of leaders today. We heard a lot of ideas. We heard a lot of passion in the room. But what does it translate into? I was sitting here talking to our sisters sitting next to me, sharing the ideas and plans that the Atlanta NACP has put in place. And one of the main things is, again, unity. The day we started with that, when I first came president, I spoke to Ambassador Young at Big Beth, and I say, how do we bring the city together? How do we unite our power? How do we weaponize our vote and our dollars? And that's everything that someone said tonight. But the question is, are we going to do it? Are we going to support these organizations? Are we going to donate to them? Are we going to volunteer? Are we going to stand behind them, or this is just another show? We're tired of shows. It's time to perform. It's time to do what we need to do. And it's time to come together. But we cannot do that if we stay divided. And what I said when I came here today, even though I was not, or Atlanta NACP was not on this panel, I said Atlanta NACP is the largest, oldest civil rights organization. And not to take bragging, but every organization that came here today was birthed from us, the work that we've done since 1909. We cannot be left out of the conversation. We must be involved, and we must understand that we are relevant. Every organization here is relevant, and we must stand together. There's no big I's and little U's until we understand it as a people and unite and use our power and then go after these votes and get these people to the poll. We can preach this all day long. Our God is, how do we get the people to the polls? When I was at the Capitol in January, and I had 20 legislation bills, because I understand laws is systemic change. And the representative in the Senate said, Mr. President, we don't have the votes. I put it down. I said, well, how do we get the vote? He said, we got to turn 9 seats. I said, well, let's look at 12. We got to do what we need to do. Let's identify those counties that we have the greatest chance of turning. Let's organize. I don't care if it's in Wichita, Georgia, some deep down in the woods. We must find those states, organize, get the votes, get the leadership in place so we can change the laws. We don't have to worry about anyone else changing our laws. I have initiatives to say, let's stop begging and start building. We can beg and fight, complain about all this, but we have to build. And on what we're going to build, we have to do it together. And the foundation is us, our religion, and our organization that's been on this ground since 1909. Thank you very much. I love y'all. Thank you so much, Pastor, for allowing me to speak.
And we thank you. We thank you for your service. Thank you for, even at the last minute, standing up to speak up for NAACP. Let me remind all of us that our churches meet every week. I'm not just saying that to the politicians. I'm saying that to the civic leaders too. Our churches meet every week. If you want your voice to be heard, come back to church. And I appreciate what Pastor Jamal Bryant said about what his church offers, but at Antioch, let me kind of tell you what we do. At least 5 days a week, we're giving out food. And so on a weekly basis, we're passing out between 800 and 1,200 bags or boxes of food every week, and we never call the news so that we can be on news for it. We've been housing people recovering from substance abuse for over 30 years now. And for over 30 years, we house people who are HIV positive. And so we do more than just praise and worship. And we've done the best that we could today. We thank you for being here. We had sample ballots out on Sunday because you need to know what's on the ballot before you get to the booth. Now, if we'll stand, Reverend Joseph, close us out in prayer.
Let us all stand together, and in a spirit of unity, let us go to the Lord in prayer. Gracious God, we thank you for what we have seen, felt, and heard. We thank you for how you have corralled us together on today in a spirit of unity at this summit. How, God, we pray your power upon us for what has transpired, but we understand that we need to be energized with reference to what to do. And so cover and keep us, lead, guide, and direct us in your way, your will, and your word, that we would be ever so careful to give you all the honor, praise, and glory. Go with us, be with us, energize us as we give your name all glory. In the name of Jesus, our loving liberator, that we pray and ask it all, and all who love him said together, amen. God bless you.